We're talking with Dr. Benjamin F. Chavis Jr. And, before the break, I said it seems like the black press is under attack in more ways than one. Of course, you are the president and CEO of the National Newspaper Publishers Association. How do you see that statement, the black press is under attack? And by black press, I'm including, black owned, like this radio station, which is owned by Stevie Wonder, smaller black media outlets.
Well, thank you very much, Dominique. It's a very important question. 2020, this is the 193rd year of the black press in America. Since 1827, when Freedom was first published in New York, the black press has been on the front line. The black print press, the black radio, black what little we have on TV, now social media owned properties. But in general, I think that, and I just want to salute what you continue to do, Dominic, and your historic radio station there continues to be the leading radio station in the greater Los Angeles area. I just want to salute all the good work that you and your station, my friend Stevie Wonder, continues to make, improving the quality of life of brothers and sisters there in California. But the larger question is, of course, because of systemic racism, again, this is this term, black media gets triage. Black media gets second place when major advertising agencies, and then this is another problem. A lot of the major advertising agencies don't have a lot of diversity and inclusion among the decision makers. So when it comes to the big advertising buys that keeps a lot of these radio stations alive, a lot of the black newspapers alive, black-owned media alive, black folks don't get those ads. And so it's always a struggle to keep the black press viable, black press economically viable in America. But by God's grace and by a lot of hard work, the value of the black press has not diminished. The trust of the black press has not diminished. If anything, people now know if you want to know the truth, you better go check out the black press. And that's what gives us sustainability in the marketplace, is the value proposition of the black press, and we're very proud of the black press. But yes, but it's just not a new attack. I would say that since 1827, of over the last 193 years, the black press has always been under attack because the black press has been a champion of trying to change our society. While people use the term frequently now, systemic racism, this goes all the way back. This is just not a new term. Racism is not just a novel. We talk about the novel coronavirus. It's a novel coronavirus. But, racism is not novel. It's old. It's deep in America.
Yeah, it's not the novel racism. That's a great point. Here in California, we had a law called AB 5. Well, it went into effect in January, and it really hit, among others, journalists. I mean, it's pertaining
independent contractors. Right.
Yes, including makeup artists, actors, hairstylists. I mean, that's the LA lifestyle is,
right.
Side
Uber
hustles.
drivers, Lyft drivers. I mean, we have, it's so discriminatory. And, I was talking to people in San Diego yesterday, because I understand there was a representative from San Diego who introduced, I think her name was Gonzalez, who introduced Assembly Bill 5 that got passed in January. I don't know what they were thinking about. The impact of this bill is displacing people from their entrepreneurship. It prevents people from having a second job, sometimes the first job. The coronavirus has been so devastating, Dominic, in many of our communities in California and across the country. Who would pass a legislation? What state legislature? And I'm just praying for the state legislature in California. I can't understand how they let these bills get passed. Now that these bills have been challenged in the courts, a court did put a stay, but it's a temporary stay. And I know there are others. So we're joining the NNPA, the National Newspaper Publishers Association, the NAACP, the Black Chamber of Commerce, and other groups across California are opposing Assembly Bill 5, and we are supporting Proposition 22. So there is a proposition that people can vote in November to get rid of Assembly Bill 5 by voting in favor of Proposition 22, which restores the right of independent contractors to work.
You know, it's funny because AB 5 is a bill, when a lot of us saw it, the impulse is to vote for it because you think, well, you've got workers that deserve to have, you know, benefits. They deserve to be treated as employees rather than contractors. But it seems like this is one of those situations where the unintended consequences are so huge that maybe it was pushed through too quickly. I don't know what the deal was, but somehow this turned into a massive nightmare for our state.
Exactly. You know, the whole cliche, Dominique, good intentions sometimes have bad consequences. And this is what this is. I'm certain that the people who supported AB 5 didn't realize the consequences. And here's the thing. In life, what's better, to be your own boss or to be have a job, to be an employee or employer? Many independent contractors, Dominique, after they've been a while, they start their own business based on their expertise, and they become employers. So it's interesting to me that the state legislature in California would put roadblocks to people working independently. Sometimes, you know, in this economy, Dominique, sometimes you have to have more than one job.
Tell me about it.
So some people are employed in one place, and then then they work to take care of their families as independent contractors through Lyft and Uber and other ride shares, as well as you've mentioned the makeup artists and people, journalists who are independent contractors, freelance writers to keep our press alive. So I just think it was poorly done. I would use that term. But the impact is going to be devastating, is being devastating in California. So we're hoping that millions of people will go to the polls in November and vote in favor of Proposition 22, which would overturn AB 5.
The thing about it is, you know, again, if you just look at it through, you know, I want everybody to, you know, get benefits. So for some people, if you don't have your own business, you think, well, yeah, you know, being an employer, a real employee might be a good thing. But when you think about LA in particular, I'll give you an example. I have a production company that, you know, sometimes does videos for people, and I loan myself out as talent. Well, now if I want to hire a videographer to just do one video for me in a year, because I'm not Fox Studios and I don't have, you know, hire you every day I can't do it, because that person would have to be on the payroll. I'm going to have to pay them medical and dental, or whatever, medical at least, and, you know, all that stuff. And there are so many little companies like mine, you know, doing a small production where they'll hire makeup artists and hair people and videographers and editors for, you know, maybe 2 or 3 projects a year. Now those jobs are gone because I can't afford to hire you if I have to take you on because of one job as a full-time worker. That's a problem.
Exactly. That's an excellent example, Dominique. Thank you for sharing it. You know, but, you know, if you go to Economics 101, it says that the U.S. economy is made up of small businesses. So then, why would the California legislature do something to thwart the evolution to undermine the ability for people to start their own small business? Because what you just described, that was just your small business. You have a right to do that. And the state of California should not have the right to deny you an opportunity to retain that videographer or to retain that makeup artist as independent contractors so you can get the job done. But if you have to employ them as your employee, then all of a sudden it puts you in a whole another category. It disables you from being an entrepreneur. And I think that's so unfair. And of course, we're going to continue to speak out. Part of the reasons that we have the black press, Dominique, is to speak out on issues like this. I wrote that op-ed. You'd be surprised. I've been getting emails from all over, not just California, but from all over the United States, from people say, "Oh, wow, we never thought of it that way." See, we do have to have these discussions. And I would like to even go to Sacramento to talk to the state legislature. I want to talk to Governor Newsom about this. I think when things are done poorly or done wrongly or done without understanding the consequences of the legislative act, then I think the legislature has a responsibility to correct itself. Just don't let this thing continue without challenging. I think that throughout our history, not only in California but across the United States, unfortunately, there are bad public policies that get institutionalized. And again, we started this discussion, Dominic, talking about systemic racism. All right, now, this legislative act, AB 5, is adding a purpose and made it a law, what's legal and what's not legal around independent contractors. That's going to be devastating, particularly to persons of color who are trying to get into the marketplace, who are trying to become entrepreneurs, who are trying to be independent contractors. Do you know, in many cases, people who have been formerly incarcerated, Dominic, they can't get a regular job. So they go out and become independent contractors, trying to make a living for themselves. What's going to happen to all those people? They're going to get shut out of the workplace. This is so wrong. And I hope others will join the NMPA, join my voice, join your voice to speak out about the wrong that AB 5, Assembly Bill 5 is doing. And hopefully we can all correct it by voting for Proposition 22 in November.
Here's the thing. I mean, the impulse is, generally I consider myself very pro-union, pro-labor. I want people to get benefits and such. And but on the other side of the spectrum, I'm not going to hire that videographer. I'm just not going to do it. It's not because I'm an evil capitalist. I just can't afford to put you on payroll. What about all these? Okay, you think about folks that work
I'm pro-labor also, but here's the thing: independent contractors, workers. Since when is an independent contractor not be a worker? I was telling some brothers and sisters in Washington, we need to organize a union for independent contractors.
Right, because that's where I was going. Because how do you protect people? You don't want people. You don't want people to get messed over. Yeah,
exactly. We've got to protect independent contractors, not put them out, not displace them. So to me, organized labor needs to be on the right side of history on this.
Mm. Well, because things are changing. I mean, the thing is, I was telling another friend, like most of the time when I call Lyft, someone from my community picks me up. Someone, a retired lady from down the street, a professor from around the corner who's supplementing their income. And so I always say, don't try to do anything sneaky on Lyft because it's going to be one of your neighbors that pick you up and take you where you're going. But I mean, and I think it would be great for people to have benefits and stuff, but there's no way that all of the Postmates of the world, the TaskRabbits, that they're going to hire all of these retired ladies and part-time professors. So that means there would be less of those jobs. And I know that sounds like it sounds maybe like a stupid argument or maybe an anti-labor argument. The reality is, though, they're just not going to do it. And so that, to me, that creates one less option for people in my community of South LA to be able to have that side hustle.
Exactly. And I think, again, I started out working Dr. King for the age of 14. And in order to get some income, I also became a labor organizer in my late teens. I worked for ASME, the American Federation of State, County, Municipalities. So I know the importance of organized labor. But I also know the importance that sometimes organized labor gets tunnel vision. We're just concerned about one craft rather than all crafts. We're just concerned about one sector of the economy rather than all the sectors. I mean, look at police unions. Are police unions always right? Hell no. They're out here now supporting...
I call them cartels, Mr. Chavis.
So
I don't call them unions.
Right. Just the term organized labor, you have to be inclusive and diverse. Independent contractors are workers. They are hardworking people. Sometimes trying to get that second job, that second supplemental income. And particularly now, through COVID-19, when everybody's working virtually, you know how many people now, how many new businesses have just started since January, since March, where people are at home trying to figure out how they're going to make an income. They're getting on their computers, they're writers. We've got more writers now working for the Black press than ever before because they need to find a way how to use their skills independently of being somebody's employee. I know the Black press, the majority of the people that work for the Black press are independent contractors. That would put us out of business. We have 27 African-American owned newspapers in California alone. And all of I just did a survey. All 27 hire independent contractors.
Right, because most of them can't afford to have a huge staff on.
That's correct.
What about how do we protect workers, under this scenario? Workers that do want to work full time, or workers that within the gig economy or these type of jobs? That's
a very good question. If you look at the details of Proposition 22, it does provide independent contractors to get insurance. It does provide independent contractors to have a better shot at getting the economy together. And it's my understanding that Uber and Lyft now are offering some benefits to people who work for them as independent contractors. So there's been somewhat of a compromise, but we have to first overturn Assembly Bill 5, which now is a law. We're not talking about a proposal. Unfortunately, the California legislature passed Assembly Bill 5. It's a law since earlier this year. Now, to overturn it, we have to vote for Proposition 22.
All right, let's go to Alfred calling us from L.A. Good morning, Alfred.
Good morning to Queen Dominique. I met you years ago, and I want to thank you very much for the great work you're doing.
Oh, appreciate that.
And I also want to congratulate the doctor. He's so wise. And
thank you.
I also want to say that I believe that the way that we think is very important. And sometimes, unfortunately, we don't think, we think in a religious way, and sometimes we don't even use common sense. So I'm just wondering, in light of the election, are we seeing things the way they really are, or we just seeing things the way we were taught to think? And I'm afraid.
Okay, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
I'm afraid that if we do not think a little deeper, we could end up losing this fight. And I'm from Guyana. I used to be a minister, and Mr. Bornham, he was a very good minister until he declared himself above the law and declared himself a president for life, and everything fell apart.
Yeah. Well, it's a great point, and I thank you for that, Alfred. I mean, we're talking about a scenario where, we could actually be looking at, a totalitarian, or many people say fascist government. I mean, if the president of the United States refuses to step down, if he loses, if he should win, which is still a very real possibility, with or without the popular vote. In response to what Alfred is talking about, Dr. Chavis, do you think that we are taking this election too lightly? Do you think that our democracy is really literally in peril? And what happens if the president refuses to leave office?
Thank you. Again, very good question. Thank you, Alfred, for calling in, and shout out to all of the brothers and sisters from Guyana. One of the greatest writers from Guyana was Walter Rodney, who was a personal friend of mine. One of the things, I'll just say this anecdotally, Dominique, when you've been in the movement is not as large as you think. So everybody kind of knows everybody over the years. I'm 72 years old, Dominic. I've been involved since I was 12. That means for the last 60 years, I've been on some of the front lines of all the struggles, not only here in America, but in Latin America and South America and in Africa. Nelson Mandela was a close friend of mine also. So the reason I'm pointing this out is that, yes, I think too many people, not all, but too many, are taking the elections too lightly. I've actually heard people tell me, Dominique, recently, my vote doesn't count. It does count. Let me put it this way. The only way your vote will not count is if you don't vote. Yes, if you don't vote, then your vote won't count. But who in 2020, given the prevalence of the COVID-19, given the prevalence of at least the awareness now of the vectors of systematic racism, we have more than reasons to vote. Our people are disproportionately impacted, fatalities of COVID-19. Now we're finding out that the disease is much more viral than had expected. In many communities, it's airborne. It's not only because of pre-existing morbidities, but it's other disparities that make us vulnerable to COVID-19. So, yeah, we got to vote. And yes, I think that we may have a situation. Remember, in 2016, the person who won the popular vote did not become president. And I think if you look at where the campaigns are focusing now on those swing states, while California is not a swing state, I think people in California should not let their vote be taken for granted, and we should not underestimate the power of the vote. So I would encourage everybody to protect our democracy by participating in the democracy, not just being a witness. And some people sit on the sidelines and say, I'm going to watch and witness what happens. No, we all have a chance to participate. And same thing about the census, Dominic. Every 10 years, they count everybody. Right now, there's a low count in California. I was looking at some statistics where a lot of people have not filled out their census form. That's going to have devastating impact for 10 years. Because based on the census count, public policy, the allocation and distribution of resources are going to be determined based on the census count. So if there's an undercount in people of color communities, that's going to hurt our community. Similarly, if we don't have a record voter turnout in November, and it's only 60 days left, Dominic, 60 days to the most consequential election in American history. We have to get that vote out. We got to vote early if you can in a jurisdiction where you can vote early. Make sure your voter registration is up to date, because a lot of times they purge the rolls. If you haven't voted in several elections, your name could be taken off the rolls. You may think you're registered. So prepare yourself. And, of course, we were talking about Assembly Bill 5 and Proposition 22 to rectify this bad law that California has preventing independent contractors from working for companies like Lyft or Uber or rideshare companies and other independent contractors, which you've cited. Dominic, you can't even hire that videographer that you need to hire so you can get these additional gigs. So we all need to pull together and work. But I would say the rallying call today is to be active, is to be conscious, is to be involved, and to be engaged.
All right, we're going to continue our conversation with Dr. Ben Chavis Jr. right after this. It's not too late to call in, 520-KJLH, 520-5554. Total Talk Expression, Radio Free, 102.3 KJLH.